Okay, well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good evening for us here in Europe. Good afternoon or morning in the US, and we thank you everybody for having the time to join us on this masterclass, which is something that we're starting little by little at Rare Spirit Society to have monthly masterclasses. Actually, this month we have two master classes. This one with the Rum Punk, Rene Van Hoven. And in a couple of weeks, we will have one with Ramon Almao. And actually, one of the first master classes we had in August with Luis Vieira, which is right now sitting in the as a guest. But appreciate that also he's here. Luis in August did one for Santa Teresa. And today, actually, we welcome Rene Van Hoven, aka the Rum Punk, to give a master class on what is the Solera system of Zacapa. And before I pass the microphone to him, or if Luigi wants to say something, but before I do that, I would like to just give a little intro about who is Rene Van Hoven and the Rum Punk. So Rene is based in Amsterdam, and we got to know him actually only this year. He became a Sugarcane member of Rare Spirit Society, and he has over 40 years. He has been in love with rum. Actually, his first sip of rum was when he was 17 years old. He had a Bacardi with Coke.
It was legal, eh? It was legal. We
So
talk
he
about
had
the
about
Netherlands. Legal. It's legal.
Okay, at 17 it was legal there. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And so at the beginning it was a little bit of Bacardi and a lot of Coke, but then as time went by, that proportion changed to a lot of Bacardi and a little bit of Coke. As of today, well, later, sorry, around the year 2000, 2001, he discovered Zacapa, and he was very surprised at that time. Zacapa, he will explain more on this, but at that time it was a bit different from what the liquids that you find today. But then he fell in love. He was blown away by Zacapa to the point that he actually went to Guatemala. He visited Guatemala, met with the Maestra Ronera, and that actually, with all the knowledge that he got there, he wrote a book called Above the Clouds, which is about Zacapa and the aging system. But this is very independent, right? This is not sponsored by Zacapa. This is
No.
not completely independent. So that means he's really putting the truth that he sees without any intervention from the brand and the owners. And today he already has over 400 bottles in his private collection. And ladies and gentlemen, Rene Van Hoven, aka the Rum Punk.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Wow, that's quite an introduction. I'm blown away. But let's start the presentation. I am having. I start with. I have some rum in my glass. I have. That way. This one, it's an older one from the early 2000s. In my glass, an XO. I have some more. Maybe I'll show some later, but we're gonna taste. Well, you're gonna taste maybe other things, but the presentation it starts with who I am and why we are here, and then we go to two books that I have written. So, Journey to Above the Clouds. That's purely about Zacapa. That's from my trip to Guatemala. And then the Rum Rebels, which is about all female master blenders not all, a lot of them, it's 16 from the rum world. So Lorena, the master blender from Zacapa, is also in that one. She's a friend of mine. I'm not connected with the brand, so I can still complain about things to her, so that she expects nothing less. Like I said, for me, it all started in Barbados. This is 2000 or 2001. I don't know when this picture is taken on the two. That's a little bit blurry in the computer system. But that was my first contact with Zacapa. That's the first competition that I did. So we had to taste all the products. This is the first one, and dozens I did after that. And I traveled 5 continents in tastings and competitions. So I've seen quite a fair bit. If you see these 4, these are all the old bottles. The second, that one I have. That is an old one, which tastes totally different from what you taste these days. And especially the one on the right, the Colonial, I have never seen ever again. So that's, but that was really impressive. But it was younger than what they produce now, by the way. So Lorena is a dear friend of mine. I even been on her birthday. Back then, when I was in Guatemala, it was her birthday, and we celebrated that in an abandoned church. It was really fun. And when you talk about Zacapa, you always hear the story about above the clouds, and then everybody pictures something like this. And this is also what Diageo and Zacapa like to show you. But this is a volcano. There is no distillery at all over there, trust me. It is high in the mountains, but it's like a plateau. It's totally somewhere else and very far from the city. So when I was in Guatemala, we flew in by helicopter. So we had a beautiful view about everything. The harvest was happening. So that was all extra fun. I tried some harvesting myself. I am not built for it. That was clear. That breaks my back. You can't see it on the picture, but I'm 1.90 meters. So this is quite a bending down for me. This is really hard work. I know now how heavy it is. I'm impressed by those who can do it an entire day. Just for fun, we also watched, we went to some coffee plantation where they dry the coffee in the sun. Also very interesting. That is actually where I started to like coffee. I never drank coffee, but that's where I started to drink coffee. And everybody noticed that I'm terrible with too much caffeine. I get a little bit jumpy. But, if you enter the distillery, this is where you enter. The visitor center starts on the right. It's the barrels. Everything looks beautiful, of course. And you see that they do have a connection with Botran, although they don't like to mention that too much. I tried to get information about the precise connection, but they stay silent about that. It's like, yeah, they show that they have the connection. What it is, they're not going to tell. But there's also, for me, there's still a lot of secrets, because yeah, I don't know exactly why they have secrets, but they do have a lot of them. Nothing we can do about it. If we talk about the Solera system, I'm sure every one of you thinks of this. This is the Solera is the lowest level. Then you get the first criadera, above that the second, then the third, and you can go higher what you want. The adding is sobre tabla. That's the adding of the fresh spirit. Going lower in filling the lower level is Roctar, and emptying a bit of the lowest level, that's 30%, is then taken out. That's called the Saka. This is how everybody, well, I think everybody of you thinks of the Solera system. Am I right or am I wrong? Is this what everybody sees?
Not me.
Not me. Oh, well, no, not anymore. But that is indeed, it is correct, yet not totally. Because this is how sherry is actually aged mostly these days, in tanks. Of course, if you go to the sherry area, you will see a lot of beautiful bodegas. They're really lovely. They're really good looking, beautiful stuff. clean and etc. But most sherry is actually aging in tanks because they're not interested in the wood flavor. So why add it in wood? That's an old thing, and they keep a lot of it is actually aging in spending time. That's a better word in tanks, and it's an administration thing. As long as they know which part of the sherry is in which tank, they can work with it. You can see it's all connected, so they can pump from any tank to any other tank. It's quite an ingenious system, but of course it doesn't fit the image that it has. But this is how it is, especially with the big ones. If you go to Zacapa and you go to that where you arrive purely as a tourist, this is what they will show you. So that's also that image again, 4 layers. So that means 3 criadera high. But as you can see on the floor on the right side, it's really clean. This is for the tourists. This is for the tourist. Because this is the real warehouse. And this is a small one, by the way. This is one of the smaller ones. So this is 100, 150 meters further away. Not sure if the tourists ever get to see this one. But this is how they actually stock their barrels. Vertical, all stacked up, quite full. And you don't see a Solera system happening here as such. But this is the Solera system because all those barrels are in the computer system, so they know precisely which barrel is where. So they know which to pick. And of course, per group, per line, it is quite matching. But this is the real one. And sometimes a few warehouses have like a bit, some age, and then you have to, for the next age, you have to go to a different warehouse. But this is how it really is with Zacapa. This is the real thing. And then you can also see the floor, much more dirty. You know, there's, well, this is work area. This is clearly work area. The other one is tourist area. So what we're going to do is talk about this drawing. This one I made together with Rene, the master blender. She made a drawing. I have no clue where it went, but that is quite a fun thing. She drew it by pen, and we talked it over again and again and again, and this is what we worked out. So this is what I'm gonna explain. This is the Zacapa Solera system. So it is different. But if you look at the Solera system as a blending system instead of an aging system, then it is a little bit more easy to accept that this is also a Solera system. If you stick to the part where what you see, what you know from the sherry area, true one, then even plenty sherry is not made according to Solera system. So it's best if you skip that a little bit. It's historically correct, but today in the 21st century, it's adapted to the modern time. But this is what we're gonna do, and this is how Zacapa makes it. If you have questions, Luigi will take all the questions, and then we will see when or when not we're gonna answer it. But
yeah, you can drop them in
the
chat. You can drop them in the chat, and we make this conversation.
Because if you do not interrupt, I keep going. I'm a locomotive. I go. I go. But this is slowly I will explain the entire alphabet. So we start on the top left. So it's from the distillery. So the fresh spirit from the latest harvest. That's of course obvious. That goes into barrels. And those barrels are American bourbon barrels. That's called FFBB, First Fill Bourbon Barrel. They like their names to be as young as possible because First Fill Bourbon Barrel means it's the second liquid, actually. There already has been bourbon in it. This is the first one after the bourbon. So technically the second, but they like to keep that name as in first, as in fresh. Happens all over the world, by the way. That ages, by the way, for at least 1.5 years. Sometimes up to 2 years, so that they have to test all the rum. After that, when it's between 1.5 and 2 years aged, it goes in huge wooden blending containers, barrels. I will have a picture of that later. And they are like 17,000, 18,000 liter each. They're really huge. So all those barrels are put together and it's blended, so you have one big mix.
Sorry, Rum Punk. Yeah, we have a question from Luis Viera.
I take a sip.
Yes. What type of distillation is used?
Column. Pure column still. I haven't seen a pot still then. Of course, I do not know what they do now, but I don't think they will do pot still at all. Everything is column still. Yeah. Huge looking, it's like stainless steel on the outside, copper on the inside. But then it means it's a thinner layer of companies that have pure copper stills, but of course the outside doesn't have to be copper. It's totally not needed. And copper is very, very expensive. So it's a cheaper way of making a continue still with only copper on the inside. But it is quite big, actually. It's quite tall. It's tall. Not really wide, but it's, I think, roughly 15 meters high or something like that. Yeah. It's really, well, it looks nice and shiny.
We have another one. Sorry.
Blending.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry. Is the answer okay? Is it? Shall I continue? Okay.
We have another question.
I do have pictures of the distillery, but not in the presentation as such. But I do have them. So help me remind, and I can show you some pictures of it.
Rum
If
Punk,
you have that blending container,
Can I interrupt you?
Yep. Oh, try.
Are those FFBB washed or somehow treated before adding the rum?
No, these are as they are. They arrive as fast as possible, and this is not changed at all. That happens later in the system, but you will see automatically which part that is. That happens later, indeed. But these are all the barrel as they are. They arrive taken apart, all nice packed. The staves all have a number, so they go in the right order again, and they are rebuilt in Guatemala. If you do it differently, if you transport the entire barrel as such, you are also exporting more than 200 liters of American air, which is fucking expensive, of course. That's also the way they do it in Scotland, by the way.
Oh,
all taken apart. Sorry?
Wow. So the first time I hear that, so they don't fill a container with, let's say, 70 empty barrels. They actually fill the container with barrels that are
I do know that
like only the staves.
They also did transport whole ones, but like I said, it's you transport a lot of air. And also in Scotland, it is normal to pack them, because if you have a container, mostly they work with container shipments, especially if you work with the Jack Daniels or Jim Beam, it's really easy to fill a container. But if you have the entire container as such, yeah, you have a lot of air. So let's say you need to transport 1,000 barrels. That they are as a barrel. That is roughly said 200, more than 200,000 liters of air, which is very expensive air. So if you want to keep that also a little bit cheap, You need to take them apart and rebuild them, and that is really easier, faster, and especially cheaper. I have built, that was in Scotland when I worked for a company that imported in the Netherlands whiskey. I have been building for my training. I have been building those kind of barrels with that system. You know, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And I didn't know we did that that day. So I arrived in a white T-shirt, but I came back in the hotel totally black. I had to soak in the bathtub for like half an hour, and then take all the black, because it is dirty work, but it is the best. It is the best, and I am not the fastest. It took me 20-25 minutes, but they do that in a little bit more than 5 minutes. If you know what you do, it is so much easier, so much easier. And they have some machines which you will see a little bit later as well. That is the easiest, and especially the cheapest way, especially if you work with Diageo, big volumes, big numbers. Yeah, you need to pay attention to price as well. Going back to where we were, this one's going to take 2 hours. If you are with that blending container, or well, they have both actually, a container and a wooden barrel, both the same size. They add from old stock. So that is technically Zacapa rum that already has been gone through this system till age. So that will all become clear how that circle works. So they add some old rum to the young rum. That is the start of how they consider the Solera system. It's blending young rum, really young rum, with really old stuff. So that is in the full circle. That's, well, I dare to say, I'm sure it's not 23 years, but that's a different discussion. Of course, I don't know the real age. It is, I think, half made up or calculated once. But let's pretend it's the 23 years old. So they add 23 years old to that between 1.5 and 2 years old aged rum. They blend that together. Then it goes into new barrels, other barrels, I should say, because that's a burned bourbon barrel, which is an FRB. So that's a first refill bourbon barrel, which is precisely the barrel FFBB, the first fill barrel, but then they burned it on the inside again. That is a fresh. So they scrape out the inside and then burn the inside, so you get fresh notes from that part of the wood. So we have been shown that as well. So this is one of the machines that's doing it. You can see it is quite a serious burning. It's also possible to do really small burnings, a small fire, like a small roasting fire you can have in the garden, you know, almost like a barbecue level. Then you have a total different kind of effect. This is heavy burden. This is 25, 30 seconds of heavy fire. After it being cleaned, the inside is normal wood again. It's really a huge fire. We were standing 3 meters away, but it's bloody hot, if I may use those kind of words. They also have some men who can do it by hand. If the barrel needs a little bit extra attention here or there, or they have to be a little bit more careful, he can do it by hand. Just as hot. As you can see, it's just as hot. I'm sure this is for the effect, because this doesn't do much on the inside. But it was fun to see. Too bad we were not allowed to try that ourselves. That would have been extra fun. Then I would have shown you the video, but I don't have it. And then when it's burned, you can see here it's going. It's not technically, it's not alligator skin as it's called. That's the heaviest, but the wood gets damaged. It cracks open. You can see all kinds of lines in it. So the rum that will be put in later can go really deep in the barrel where other spirits not have been yet. So you get a lot of the sugar that they can take out of the wood. And the more you have these cracks, that changes the size of the surface. That's a mathematical fact. So they get a lot more, the heavier you burn it and the more it cracks open, the more effect you get of wood. Sherry doesn't like wood. Rum loves wood, of course. So this is how the inside looks. This is the barrel that was freshly burned. So we have seen that one getting burned. So first refill bourbon barrel. You see, I said before, it's still they talk about first, while we're talking now about the third filling of that barrel. The third one is going in. It started with the bourbon, then you have the fresh spirit. So now you have the slightly aged spirit. So it says first refill, which means it is the third filling. That's the burned one. Again, that is aged 1.5 up to 2 years. It is possible a little bit longer. I don't think these days that will happen a lot, but they pretend so, but that's more Diageo who pretend so. But then you go into that same system again. It goes into a blending container. Wait, I should have mentioned, if I do it like that, they add again, of course, in the blending container. The basis that 23 years old is added again. And then they go to the next barrel, which is a fresh Oloroso sherry butt, 500 liters. They would prefer smaller, but like I said, sherry doesn't like wood. So they used all the barrels, and the bigger the barrel, the less impact the wood has on the liquid inside. That's also just a mathematical thing. But the bigger the barrel, the less impact the wood has. So sherry always has big butts. Not from the song, I love big butts, but different butts. This is wooden butts. No. And Oloroso is a more light one, but it gives a really nice flavor to the Zacapa. And only actually when I tasted them all, so I tasted after A, after D, after F, and after H, and after L, I tasted them all in line. Only here I started to notice that it is gonna be a Zacapa. Here only I got that Zacapa feeling. With the first one, it was like, this can be anything. You know, if I'm blindfolded, I can be on any island or any piece of the world. No clue what we're tasting, no clue. It's totally, yeah. The character is not so much in the fresh part. After the Oloroso, but it goes again in a blending container. Also, again, 20-year-old rum, Zacapa, is added. So it's always still debatable then how old is the oldest part, because it adds up quite quick. But like I said, 23 is a made-up number. The youngest is 4 times 1.5, so that means 6 years. That's the youngest piece of the 23 years old. And the oldest, your guess is just as good as mine. It probably can be calculated, but then you need administration. For now, I have a clue. Tell me at the end. I would be interested in it. The whole blending container goes in new barrels again. That's the PX. That's Pedro Ximenez. That's the really dark sherry, very strong flavor, sweet. It's like a dessert wine. It's really high in sugar. Again, 500 liters. And with all these barrels, the ones that do not The bourbon barrels are taken apart. The sherry barrels are not taken apart. And the fun thing is, you're not allowed to know this, so don't take notes. But they they want the barrel to be wet. That is the term that they use for it. That's also how they used in the books. When they talk about these kind of barrels in one piece, it's a wet barrel. That means it's allowed to have up to 10 liters sherry still in it. So when you talk about wet barrels, there is something of the previous juice still in it. Up to 10 liters is allowed, which is 5% of the whole thing, but that does have an influence. So we can debate, actually, of using wet barrels is not already adding to the rum. I think it's technically adding, but it's a small percentage. I do know that a lot of companies do that. That's why the term is used everywhere. So that's the fun thing, a wet barrel. Now you know what a wet barrel means. The PX has a huge effect on color, on flavor, on sweetness, because there is up to 10 liters still in it. So yeah, that's quite strong stuff, quite a lot. And there, because then technically you finished the 23-year-old version, half of the entire aging system goes back in the system. So only half goes to the bottling line or goes to become an XO. And that means that in those 4 steps, also half, so that's a quarter of that half, of each half, is added every time. So that's all calculatable roughly what that means. But here the system is refilled again, and that goes into the next batch. I get a dry mouth, one moment. So here you see that they also built their own stuff, their own barrels. Well, not their own barrels, I mean, they rebuilt the barrels. You can see the rust. This is all the old stuff. You see the closures behind. This is how they, if you have that barrel, you can see that on the line on the wood, the lines on the wood, that this is the order it should have been. So they followed the numbers. But with these on top, those small straws, that's how they make the barrel watertight. They test that with water. If it's not leaking, then it's okay. But this is how they make it waterproof again. And that's why it's important that they do it in that lineup. All those staves are reshaped according to its neighbor. So that those, if you put that in the right order, that is really the best fit. You can try it differently. Not going to work. We tried it, of course, when I had to test it. We tried it, of course. No, that is a terrible idea. I knew that after 3 minutes already. That is not working at all. So here you see one of the machines that is with those metal hoops around it. They push it down. You really need some heavy power on that. This is a very strong system. This is also how they do it in Scotland. But this is how they rebuild it.
Rum Punk, my friend, we have a couple questions.
Oh, yeah.
One from Renato Molo.
Huh?
Says, can you explain again what wet barrel means? 10% filled of what exactly?
10 liter. No, I will start from the start again, and I will do my best to explain it a little bit more broad, if possible. The bourbon barrels arrive taken apart. They need to be rebuilt. But sherry barrels arrive as one piece. That's a lot of air that they transport, but so be it. But in the system, it is allowed, also within the law, it's allowed over there. And in many countries, by the way, the same happens in Scotland. So also whiskey uses this system. And the system is called wet barrels. And a wet barrel means that if it's in one piece, that up to 10 liters, well, that is the rule from Zacapa. Other companies can have different numbers, of course. But in Zacapa, they are allowed to have up to 10 liters of the original liquid that aged before this one, before Zacapa goes in. That was aged. It's allowed up to 10 liters still being in the barrel. That doesn't mean in the wood of the barrel, but floating or on the bottom of the barrel. So there's really, let's keep it simple. There is 10 liters. If you use the sherry barrel, the Oloroso, there's 10 liter Oloroso sherry on the bottom, just as a liquid, just as I have liquid here in my glass. It is on the bottom of the barrel. That makes it a wet barrel. So original shape, never taken apart, and the previous spirit or drink, sherry is not a spirit, but the previous drink still in it, up to 10 liters. But that's the 10 liters is a Zacapa rule. Is that more clear?
I think so, my friend. We have another question.
Okay.
From Byron Craig. It says, with this complex of a system, how can you keep consistency of the end product from year to year? I also have that question. I want to know.
I dare to say, well, you quite can. It is possible, but it doesn't happen. I told you guys I worked for a whiskey company, so I have been in Scotland and Ireland. It has been years ago, so that was the main. It is still the main market, but there was really not much others. But I have been in those countries a lot, and if you know Highland Park, the whiskey from Orkney. The master blender back then was Max, and we became friends. And he told me, if you look at the Highland Park 21 years, he always likes to ask, how old is this whiskey? And then everybody says, the youngest part is 21 years. That is a general rule, or well, assumption. It's an assumption. And he said, it isn't. What the rule actually says from whiskey, when it concerned age, it's not the youngest ingredient is 21 for that one. The rule is actually the youngest whiskey is for sure not younger than 21. And those are two different things, because he explained me that if they need to make Highland Park 21 now, they can't go below 24 years, actually. They have to use much older whiskies to keep the blend consistent. And if you become more and more popular, like Zacapa did, of course, they grew from a small local distillery to a huge international one. You can't work with that. It works against you. You need older and older and older, because production is simplified, shorter fermentation and those kind of things. So the basic whiskey gets more and more light and more easy. So they need more and more influence of the wood. Then it doesn't work. Highland Park tries it, but Highland Park is still not the biggest in the world. So they can do that. But if you grow way too much, you can't do that. And then it is actually quite difficult to maintain a flavor. But I have here, for instance, the camera doesn't work like I wanted to do. I have this. So this is an old version. Totally covered instead of just a little bit. So, but back then that was also possible because that takes you like 35 minutes, I believe, that they did about it. 35, 40 minutes to make it like that. If they would do that like now, it's going to be also way too expensive. Now I lost. Where was I going? The age. But that one, so that is the one that I tried in Barbados in 2000 and 2001. It is not comparable with what is sold today. Back then, it was much more wood, much more thick in the mouth, not so much from sweetness, because it's much sweeter now. It was really more concentrated in everything. So it often happens, and a lot of companies do that as well. If you see a change of the label, there is highly likely also a small change in the recipe. And a lot of companies change that recipe. I also talked with Cerales, who make Don Q. And I have an old bottle from the 1980s, and I showed it to the manager director, and he says, "Oh, that." He says that rum, the recipe of that rum is actually much better than what we do now. So they even agree on it. Of course, this is off the books. This is not officially, so you all didn't hear this, that I said this. Don't make notes, but that is a fact. It is really difficult to keep up with the flavor. And I'm specialized in old bottles, so I have a lot of old bottles. And if I compare them with the new ones, the old ones are more complex, and for sure, several of them don't even taste like family. Things change through year on year. That's short. Long term, yeah, a lot of things change. But you're not allowed to know that, so I didn't say this. So cut this out of the video before I get trouble. Then again, I am me. That's why I'm the punk. Does that answer the question? I go in all directions now.
I think so. There's another question.
Oh yeah.
If you wanna answer another one.
Yeah, sure.
So this is from El Ronero. André Concepcion says, just to clarify, according to the previous slide, they use 500 liters ex-sherry barrels, both ex-oloroso and ex-PX. That means that they allow 10 liters that represent 2% of the barrel capacity. That means that they allow 10 liters represent 2% of the barrel capacity.
Yep. That's the short answer. Yep. But this happens in whiskey, this happens in rum, this happens all over the world. This is a global thing. The only, as far as I know, the only barrel-aged product that doesn't do that, which is actually quite obvious, is bourbon, because they work with new oak, which that rule also has been changed, but bourbon always used to, until a few years, always used to go into new oak, freshly made, freshly burned. But that was simply because that the rule for that came when you have a lot of people without work in America. And if you come up with a system where every time you make a new spirit, it has to go into a new barrel, those barrels have to be made. That is American jobs. The barrel, the wood, the staves were made in an American company. So that is American jobs. The wood would come from American forest. That is American jobs. It's all jobs. They put it into a law, and now it's still quite common in bourbon, but it is technically a work trick to provide jobs. And that's also for very long. That will change now the upcoming years as well. Each year, all those barrels were sold outside of America, and of course, most to Scotland. And that was for a cheap price. But the prices have been going up as well, because the whole whiskey world is increasing. The rum world is increasing. They all need barrels. They all want the bourbon barrels because those were always the cheapest. Still, they're quite to the others. But yeah, that's the 10 liter, up to 10 liter, if I do it precise. Yeah, and it's also happening in the whiskey area. So I worked a lot with Glenfiddich, and yeah, they do that as well. And I have seen it. I've seen the bottom of those barrels. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
One question, and the limit is always 10 liters out of 500, or is it depending on the country?
The 10 liters is technically a Zacapa rule. Maybe others, I don't know all the rules from every company, of course, because they do not like to mention this too much. But like I said, I know Lorena a little bit better. She's in my phone. If we meet, we always have a lot of fun. So I don't know it from every company. Maybe another company has 5 liters, maybe another one 7, 7.5. I don't know all the, but that is not a world rule. No, 10 is not a world rule. But it's not going to be 50 liters. That's not. That, as far as I know, that doesn't happen. It stays on the lower side. But like I said, it's. Are we talking about adding, which I think technically it is, or is it just no? It's a wet barrel. It's not much. That is a discussion between the purists and somebody who simply likes some good rum. That's the difference, I think. Shall I continue? Shall I wait? More questions? I see some people are really relaxed here. Yes, I only see 6 pictures, but you're in it. Yeah. So we are here again. I have no clue about time. I live without a watch. So we're here again. Everything goes into a blending container. What went into the system was everything that was in that barrel went with that barrel into the system. So with that sherry barrel, they went back. That barrel is not used again, because then if you talk about a wet barrel, it is their own rum, which they are already adding. So that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So those sherry barrels, the PX, go back in the system and they age a little bit more until it's added to the first American bourbon barrel again. So that is already a first full circle that you then have. That age, that goes from that blending barrel to the bottling line. And there is a small production of the 15, which is younger. We never had a proper talk because there always have been, is the word skimmy, you know, it's a little bit vague about the 15. But as far as I understood, the 15, if they notice that the aging is not going well enough, but that is my translation. I dare to say that. I have to say that out loud. It is my interpretation of the whole thing, what I say now. If it doesn't work out like, now this is going to be a really nice 23, if they think, no, it's going to be a little bit less. We don't get to that level, or we have to age too long, which is expensive. Then they make it part of the 15-year-old Zacapa. So easily calculated, that would be the youngest 4 years old, but that is never said out loud. Not that I know. Like I said, that is my interpretation of things. I've seen a lot of things happening there, so it's like, that's what I think. But don't pin me on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. The 15 is vague. The 15 is vague. So what I've said so far works perfect for the 23. So the bottling, of course, goes automatic. This is quite, back then it was an older machine, but now they have a much faster, a much more fancier machine. But this is done automatically. But most of the work on the bottling is actually done by hand. Here you see all those closures, they're all put on hand. And this is to give the local people jobs. So it's the same what America does with the bourbon barrels. Here they give jobs to the local people. They're not that expensive, but at least they have jobs. So in that way, they are really social. And this is all, this was already normal in the system before Diageo. Diageo is not the owner. They're just, how do you call it? You know, they're a co-owner. They're co-owner of it, but they're the owner. But there's a lot of work done by hand. You know, all those wraps around it, all has to be done by hand. We did get a presentation how they do it. It's less than 10 minutes. They can make that banderole, that roll. And it's all done by women, and they can all do it at home, actually. So it's a little side job, and they all make a little bit money. So like I said, it is a very social company that way. And they have hundreds of these women doing that. So they do the house, they pick up the children from school or whatever. And then when they have a little bit time, they can do this, making this stuff. So we were watching, they really finished it already before us. It is really, yeah, I tried that as well. I'm not built for that. My fingers do not do that very well. Me building a barrel was easier than making this. This is, you need very good finger skills for this one. It was, they do it really fast. No, nope, nope, nope. I didn't finish it. Was fun to try? No, not my job. Also, the boxes, everything needs to be done by hand. Putting the bottling, all work by hand. All local jobs, so they help the local people a lot that way. Like they're not becoming millionaires, at least they all have jobs. Oh, that's the cat. Now, later. So you have the 23, that's total, that circle is totally finished. Then a little bit goes into a next barrel, which is a cognac barrel, which is also allowed to be a wet barrel, by the way. Those are much smaller because just like Zacapa wants that wood influence, they also have a smaller barrel, but then made of French Limousin, which is giving a total different effect from the American oak. American oak often gives a little bit coconut style, for sure some sweetness still, and the cognac gives much more dry. So the XO is actually what I have in the glass. I thought I had a 23, but not open, only the old one. That one, after 1.5, well, actually after 2 years, they don't do the 1.5. I have to change that. It's after 2 years, then this one goes in the blending container. And then you have what they call technically either a 25-year Solera or what became later an XO. And that's what I also going to say now is also my interpretation of things. If you see a product with a number and the number is taken out and it gets a name, you can be 99% sure that that is done because they can't hold that number up. So it's probably getting slightly younger. Glenmorangie did that. They had a 12-year-old. Then suddenly they gave it all kinds of fancy names. The number 12 was taken off. You can be sure it went to 11 and 10 years. And then later 12 came. It's like when they catch up again with the system. It's just a theory, but also I have seen that happening. I am from the whiskey business. I used to be in the whiskey business as well, I should say. So if you see XO, everything is actually possible. They say they have a recipe, you have to believe them. Goes with every big company, every company, trustworthy or not trustworthy. Names are nice, they mean nothing. There is no protection to the name XO, like premium. What is premium? Mostly it only means it's extra expensive. So it's no. XO, for sure it's younger than the 25, I think. My opinion. The bottling, the 25 Solera, yes, that's there. Of course, then we did an entire tasting. The whole lineup. These are the 4 that they already had bottled. They start indeed with 60% alcohol. This is Gay Lussac, but that's the same as what we have in a percentage alcohol by volume. It's precisely the same level. So we start with the fresh, like I said. It could have been any rum for me. I know I was at Zacapa, of course. Behind it is standing Lorena. So, of course, it's Zacapa, if you say so. The second, after the bourbon, you can see a little bit color, but still it was like, not Zacapa. The third, I was still like, no, I'm not convinced. This is going to be Zacapa, and only the sherry, which gives a lot more color. You see slightly a jump, probably because of that wet barrel, by the way. But that's my assumption. So that's this is the tank of the 23 years liter, by the way. So that's the 17,000 version. They tapped it fresh, so fresh from the blending barrel. They did the same with the tank next to it, which was a 25 version. So then we had the whole lineup. So they straight from the barrel is the last 2 on the rights. And we tasted the whole lineup. And then, yeah, like for me, maybe I'm not a good taster enough. I can taste it only from 4. We talk about Zacapa, and the rest is obvious. But it's all high alcohol. The last one, the XO, was roughly 55%. So the lead in all those years, so that's 6 years in a row, and with the adding and everything, they lose 5% alcohol, just alcohol. I have no idea, because that's a secret, how much volume they lose. I only have 5% alcohol in the system, but that is quite okay. Yeah, this happens in the mountains. So this is more than 3 kilometers high. So it's you have different reactions. So alcohol should go less fast. Would this be in the valley down or on Barbados or Trinidad? The numbers would be totally different. But here you can see all the colors lining up. And this is all still the natural part. This is all nothing added yet. There is some caramel added in the end to normalize the color. If you buy 2 bottles through time, you buy 2 bottles of any brand, one is more light, the other one is more dark, you are sure that the dark one is the better one from the light one. Maybe in taste, technically it's different, but your eye deceives you. That's the dominance of the eye. What the eye sees, that's what the brain thinks. So he sees darker, that's better. So I also have, I had a bottle of Augmentosian whiskey, and it was for the Indian market. But when I got that bottle, he also showed me the Scottish bottle. So you see the Scottish bottle, and of this precisely the same one, I saw the India version, and the India version was much darker. Apparently they love their whiskeys really, really dark. So it is literally the same whiskey. They add extra caramel, it's extra dark, and everybody in India is happy. It's that easy. It's all tricks. But people want to be tricked mostly. Any questions, or did I answer everything already? What a silence, come on.
Okay, I have a question. If so, thank you very much. Yeah. So why call it a solera if it's just a blending process?
That is how you look at the system. If you look with open eyes to the sherry aging Solera system, it is not so much about aging, because aging, we all would say, involves the effect of the wood. That's aging. You can also, and that is technically is a fact, you can also age in stainless steel. That's for most people not considered aging, but if you consider age spending time and giving it rest, then you can have a debate. I also think it's not aging that much, but yeah, it's a debate. It's some people believe this and some people believe that. But if you look at the sherry system purely for that blending, then this is a variation on that blending. But they use all kinds of barrels, but they are still blending very young with very old. And that is actually why they use the Solera system as a name. The very young with the very old. Because in the final bottle, the youngest is 6 and the oldest is, well, actually beyond 23. Way beyond 23. That's why I say 23 is just a made-up name. It's sure they have a calculation somewhere originally in the system. But the way I can calculate, and I do know how Sherry calculates their ages officially, it's close to impossible to get to 23 years, actually. And I did a calculation with a Sherry that is from 1779. And I couldn't get to 23 years. So it's, for me, it's a made-up number.
Oh, it is indeed a name, because when you see the bottlings, the 23 number is written there, but it doesn't say years after.
Exactly.
So it is a name. It's 23.
In the old days, they did use the name years, and that happened everywhere. That I have seen labels of another brand. I don't believe that. I don't even remember which brand it was. But they had numbers on the label, but technically they said it's not a number. It's like there were pieces misses in the number, and when you look at it, you would say, okay, that says a 5, but it wasn't written a 5. And okay, that's an 8, but it wasn't written literally an 8 because there was pieces missing of the 8. But the way you looked at it, it's like, oh, that's an 8, and that's a 12. I said, no, it's not. And that was their trick to make you convinced it, make you believe that they have all these ages. Well, they were all much, much younger. It was all made up numbers. And that is the downside of rum, unfortunately. I know a lot of people say rum doesn't have rules, but rum has a lot of rules. I think the most rules in the world. It's just every country has different ones. That is the problem with rum. If you go to malt whiskey, malt or the bourbon, they all use the same names. They all use the same system. A malt needs to be at least 3 years old, the youngest. You cannot mention anything younger than the youngest. What I said with the Highland Park, rum doesn't have that. They're a little flexible. They're a little bit like relax more, do more. Relax, don't worry too much. It's like, That's the downside of rum. It's too flexible. They have a lot of rules, but it's too flexible. But it's also the fun of the product. And otherwise, we wouldn't have debates about all these things. For sure, this presentation wouldn't be here. For me, that's part of the fun. But then I think as a kid, I bumped my head somewhere.
Well, as Jacker Soto says, rum is fun.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
especially if you are in the area where rum is produced. It's so much fun over there. I visited several islands. The last one was 2 years ago, 3 years, 3 years ago. I was in Guadeloupe. If you're over there, it is really fun. Nice cocktails, just beach and so relaxed. And when you're over there, it's really like you don't worry if it's 23, 22, if it's 16 or 15 years. It's like, who cares? You're in the Caribbean. Who cares? Or any other country. I've also been to Brazil. Then you have a lovely cachaça on the beach, also nice. I've been to Taiwan. On that beach, it's also very nice too. Whatever you drink, it's nice. It's all nice. And you relax automatically. Well, I do. I don't know what others do. I relax automatically. I love it. Part of the fun. That is, it started as a joke, but more and more I do agree with my own joke. That is why I prefer rum above whiskey. If I like malt whiskey, but then you go to Scotland. I don't know if you've ever been in Scotland. The weather is not really tropical. So if you like rum and you want to visit all those places, you go towards the sun. If you go towards malt, you always go to shit weather. It's always raining or windy or whatever. Oh, there has been a flood or whatever. Not a storm, but it's always terrible weather in the whiskey area. While rum, apart from some storms here and there, mostly it's good weather. Anything else?
Questions? You can turn on your camera and microphone and you can ask.
Yeah, one question, Rene. The picture that you show at the very beginning in the facilities where the visitors go in the Zacapa facility, the very clean floor, that barrels are full or empty?
Actually, I wanted to show you the picture, but I know I know precisely what you mean. They are full. They are full. They are full.
Full.
But this is my interpretation. Like on the floor, you can see this is not a working floor.
Yep.
So not much is happening with the barrels. This is called deduction. Yeah. You start. You take away all the unpossibilities. You take away the unpossibilities, and then the only possibility must arise. That's how Sherlock Holmes always worked. Like it's not this. It's not this. Therefore, it must be that. No matter how unlikely it is. Same with this, because if you are a tourist here, you would like to touch the barrel, don't you? You're going to touch the barrel. You just arrived. This is like one of the first things you see. You want to touch the barrel. If it's empty and you touch it or you knock it, you will notice it. Of course, I tried these barrels, so I knocked it as well. There is something in it, but you can see on the floor, it's not a working thing. There's probably just water in it. And also the barrels are way too clean to what you see on the rest. This is all cleaned up stuff. So I think there's just water in it. Is it filled? Yes. Is it with rum? No. Then the floor would be much dirtier and everything. But yeah, it needs to be filled. Otherwise you will notice it. But that is my theory. I haven't tried anything in it. That was not possible. But it is highly likely.
Thank you.
Water. Just water. So yes, that's the answer. Yes, it's filled. Anything else? Other brands? I don't know. No? All okay?
Well, if no more questions, then, well, thank you very much, Rene, the Rum Punk. If you have any questions afterwards, you can always send to us. We will get the answers from Rene. But thank you very much, Rene. How do you feel about your first masterclass with Rare Spirit Society?
Well, I haven't done tastings for a while, but I'll get there. I'll get there. Yeah. But I warned you already. If I follow the questions, I can go in any direction. I have been in with rum is in my system. Almost 40 years, a little bit, a few months less. But I've worked. I started as a chef, by the way, but I always have been working with flavors. And once I went to rum, which is in my early 20s, it really went fast. So, yeah, of course, if you work 40 years with flavors and roughly 35 years with rum, whiskey and rum, you have a lot of experience and funny things which are not meant for the public, but those are for me the fun things to tell, of course. That's what makes a tasting a little bit more interesting. But then we walk away from the path, and then a tasting that should be 45 minutes, like I told you, my record should be less than 2 hours, and we ended up way after 3 hours. So that's all possible. But I like that, actually, that flexibility to listen to the people, like answering the questions that I really have. It only makes the whole presentation nicer for them as well, because their questions are answered. I hope everything is answered. And otherwise, I'm in the group as well, so I can always be contacted. And otherwise, come to Amsterdam, and then we have a drink here.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
all
everybody.
invited, but not at the same time.
Thank you, Rene. So thank you very much, everyone. So we are starting these master classes. We're planning already for twice a month. So the way we're scheduling, so it's easy for everyone to foresee the next, plan the next classes, is the first Thursday and the third Thursday of every month. So we already actually for the 16th of October, we have actually Ramon Almao, which is here in the audience, giving our next class with rituals of the rum. Hiker Soto, we're also talking to do another one. We don't have the date yet, and the idea is that Sugarcane members are the masters, right, for these classes. So Ramon, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to say something quickly about the next class, if you want.
Yeah, of course. Welcome to the next masterclass. I'm going to talk a little bit about rum rituals that we made in Venezuela with different kind of materials, flavors, externals from the rum. So it's very interesting to know where the smells and flavors come from the rum and mix them to external flavor from the rum. So it's very nice activities. It's another way to try the rum. Yeah, it's a very fun activity.
Awesome.
Yeah,
looking forward.
Gracias. Bueno, thank you very much. I think that's it.
Thank you, everybody.
And,
it was awesome.
If you have any comments or feedback, on how we can improve the master classes, because as you know, we're in a learning process, or if you have any ideas of any topics that you would like to get covered, please, send us those comments, and we're happy to kind of talk to the other members to see where we can get new master classes, new knowledge, and share the knowledge, and of course bring the rum industry upwards, which is what we're all about, and connect and everything in between. So, gracias.
Shoulders back, guys. Shoulders back.
Shoulders back, glasses up.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. See ya.
Thanks for joining.